you had a big story come out yesterday on the whole inside the Ben Johnson hire. What was the biggest thing that you learned through that process and what you put together?
Yeah, I think, one of the things on top of, the biggest thing like news-wise that came out of that story was about Ryan Pohl's contract situation, where he aligns currently with Ben Johnson and what the expectation is going forward for them to be, on the same path contractually. But I think the biggest thing for me in learning that, in like going through the process, was just truly how much they poured into 17 different interviews and how it all lined up to them getting their big fish. Like the day after Matt Eberflus was fired, all the names started pouring out. Like, who might they be interested in? And I remember doing a story about like the firing of Eberflus in an inside look at that. One of the first names that was floated to me from Inside House All was, we are excited to talk to Ben Johnson. Can't wait for that opportunity to do that. Now, obviously, it takes two to tango, and the perception that was put out, as we find out from his agent Rick Smith, is that that next week after the Bears Lions game, when it was Packers Lions, was that Ben Johnson wanted to go to specific places where there would be GM alignment. And there was the thought of, well, is Ryan Poles going to be leading this search? Is he going to still be with the Chicago Bears? Is he going to potentially get fired? So I think just like sorting through the last 6 weeks of the season to see what was put out there to maybe either scare teams off or to, strengthen the Bears' push, more or less, to try to get him here. He was the top candidate this cycle, and for a team that doesn't usually get the number one guy, I think their process of doing it, to me, was the most intriguing of how much they were all in on Ben Johnson, despite going through a really, lengthy process.
How much do you think Kevin Warren was an impact on this? I know a lot of fans were worried about his presence there, but I've always felt like him being the difference of the process the last 10 years.
I think the difference part is, I think he was the difference maker in all of this. When we talked to him after Ben Johnson was hired, and Ben Johnson did the press conference that it was Ryan, Kevin, and George and Caleb. I asked him about you got the McCaskies to spend, which typically, if you look at what Matt Eberflus was making, which we believe is $6 million a year, to what Ben Johnson's making, which is believed to be $13 million a year, that's a significant jump. So to get the McCaskies to give that financial commitment and not think twice about it, knowing that, I think how Kevin Warren phrased it was that, you get what you pay for. You paid for the best coach this cycle, the one that everybody wanted. I know what Mark Davis said, we didn't offer him a contract with the Raiders. Well, if you get spurned, you're probably going to try to do some damage control with the messaging however you want to, but let's not make it, Tom Brady wanted him, Jacksonville wanted him, right. Everywhere wanted him. So that cost, there's an expensive cost associated with that. And I don't know if it was the previous regime, if it would have gotten done like this. So for the Kevin Warren impact, I think, was significant. Even going into the process of when they started pulling in candidates for interviews, I had a story, I guess it would have been like 2 or 3 weeks ago now, where in the lead of my story was how they were going to do things differently for in-person candidates. Right. They were going to fly people in first-class accommodations, which I know doesn't seem like a lot, but to the process it does. And they've really, some of the coaches I talked to that interviewed but didn't get this job, one quote that didn't make it in the story that I wish, I think was, really telling was that, can I swear on this?
Yeah.
Said, they've got their shit together. That's the one takeaway that one of the candidates I spoke with that really struck me was that he felt the process, even though you're bummed you didn't get the job, he felt the process was really well done.
So I have to imagine they
6
got their
plus 7, by the way, is 13, and that's 7
right.
is more than double of 6, so it's a lot more money.
I have to imagine that them getting their shit together had a lot to do with just the complete failure of their evaluation of the coaching staff over the last 12 months.
I think it's that, and I go back to Kevin Warren wasn't here for the last one. So I think that matters, having a different voice leading, being part of leading the process. Because Ryan Poles led the coaching search. He was the dominant voice in terms of the questions. He had the one-on-one with each candidate initially. Then it was the group. Then it was George and Ryan. But there was a different, with George being in it last time with Ted Phillips in all those years that they spent together, I think a change in perspective provided by your new he's been there for 20-something months, from Kevin Warren to kind of guide George along and push him towards the uncomfortable. I think that is a big part of why this happened the way it did. But the process, they didn't do well with this coaching staff previously. And I think that had to play into a major change happening with how you go through evaluating who's a good coach and who fits for your team versus who doesn't.
We all silly like the mayor.